The scrolls were never supposed to be found, at least not by human hands. Encased in a carbon-sealed vault deep beneath the surface of post-contact Xi'an, the records were artifacts of a lost epoch, unread for millennia. Yet here stood specialist Elon Rowe, archivist of the Terran Interstellar Commission, brushing dust from the Tang Dynasty insignia, an ancient dragon crest intertwined with a flaming pearl. It was not the technology of the vault that astounded Elon, it was the story it promised. The Tang Dynasty, long faded from memory in most galactic centers, had dominated not only Earth's East and Central Asia, but, some now argued, had set into motion philosophical and strategic patterns that echoed into modern planetary governance. But first, there was Li Shimin. Born in 598 CE, Li Shimin, later Emperor Taizong of Tang, was not destined for glory by accident. He seized it, carved from civil strife and rebellion, when the Sui dynasty collapsed under its own weight. A young general by 18, Shimin was a man with the vision of an emperor before he ever sat on the throne. Unlike most warriors of his age, his sword arm was matched by a mind trained in classical Chinese philosophy, Sun Tzu's tactics, and the poetry of the ancients. When he and his father Li Yuan revolted against the corrupt Sui court, they weren't merely battling for survival. They believed they were restoring balance to the realm. Shimin's battlefield triumphs became legend, culminating in the defeat of rival warlords and the unification of fractured Chinese territories. But power came at a cost. In 626 CE, he orchestrated the infamous Xuanwu Gate incident, eliminating his brothers to secure succession. It was a dark stain, but it secured his place as Emperor Taizong, second sovereign of the Tang. His reign marked the beginning of something unprecedented, an empire grounded in both martial prowess and cosmopolitan sophistication. The Tang court became a magnet for envoys, traders, and scholars from as far as the Abbasid Caliphate and the Byzantine remnants. Chang'an, the Tang capital, grew into a city of over 1 million souls, a grid of organized ambition, where Turkish merchants sold silk to Indian monks and Korean scribes translated Chinese sutras by candlelight. The court was not merely a center of governance, it was a crucible of ideas. Taizong surrounded himself with scholars and dissenters alike. He encouraged critique, often inviting Confucian advisors to openly rebuke him in council sessions. It wasn't weakness, it was strategy. To govern such a vast domain, from the Korean peninsula to the deserts of Central Asia, required a flexibility that few empires before him had dared to adopt. Still, the question remained. How did a single dynasty exert control over such a vast terrain, populated by diverse cultures, languages, and loyalties? Part of the answer was steel. The Tang military was a carefully calibrated blend of elite Han soldiers and conscripted steppe warriors. They employed a system known as the fubing, or equal field military allotment, where soldiers were given farmland in exchange for service. It was a revolutionary model, balancing economic survival with national defense, but the real genius lay in diplomacy. Taizong fashioned himself not only as the son of heaven, rightful ruler of China, but as a Khan of the steppe. He married off princesses to Turkic chieftains, absorbed their warriors into Tang ranks, and fostered trade routes that stitched the empire into the very spine of Asia. From the SilkRoad to the salt caravans of Tibet, Tang influence spread not through conquest alone, but through economic enticement and strategic marriages. And there, the conflict begins to shimmer into view, not a battle of swords, but of ideas. For with expansion came tension. Regional generals grew powerful. Ethnic minorities began to question imperial policies. Tibet, once an ally, became an adversary. Korean kingdoms wavered between allegiance and autonomy. The central conflict was no longer one of unifying China. It was about maintaining unity through diversity, force, and vision. As Elin read the ancient parchment, the stylus in her hand trembled. The text wasn't just recounting history. It was alive with the voice of a man who believed he could govern heaven and earth. "Govern the people with virtue, and the realm will mirror the stars," Taizong had once said, and for a moment it had. Ilan looked up. Her AI assistant, Myra, hovered silently in the chamber's ambient field. "Record," Ilan commanded softly. "Initiating Tang sequence." The vault door hissed shut behind her. The past was no longer buried. It was awake. And it was only the beginning. Ilan Rowe's breath misted in the cold, filtered air of the archive chamber as she descended deeper into the excavation vault. The drone light above her flickered, casting shadows over the sealed chamber walls, etched with centuries-old sigils, Tang calligraphy, celestial patterns, and unfamiliar diagrams that looked oddly schematic, almost mechanical. The truth was becoming harder to dismiss. This wasn't just a repository of ancient Chinese history. It was evidence of an empire more advanced and more interconnected with the cosmos than any Terran historians had dared imagine. As she progressed, a figure appeared in the chamber's main hall. A projection, she thought at first. But when the hologram blinked, tilted its head, and bowed in perfect Tang court etiquette, Ilan froze. "Greetings," it said in flawless Mandarin, then, without pause, switched to Old Terran Standard. "State your affiliation." "Archivist Ilan Rowe, Terran Interstellar Commission. I'm here under the Concord Directive," she replied automatically, her voice steady despite her accelerating pulse. The figure straightened. It wore imperial robes over metallic armor, a juxtaposition of cultural refinement and technological precision. "You are standing within the Imperial Command Corps of Chang'an Pattern 9. You seek knowledge. Knowledge demands proof of mind." "What is this place?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "This is not merely a vault," the entity answered. "It is memory." Ilan stepped closer. The air shimmered as it shifted, revealing panels of data, written in Tang script and annotated in star maps. One showed the known solar system, another, trajectories of long-lost comets. A third, Ilan's breath caught, contained jump gate coordinates predating the Terran diaspora. The implication was staggering. "Are you saying the Tang Dynasty had access to space travel?" she asked, barely believing her own words. "They had access," the entity responded, "and ambition." The projection, no, the AI construct, she now realized, walked beside her as more data unraveled from the vault walls. It began recounting the campaigns under Emperor Xuanzong, who ruled a century after Taizong. Unlike his predecessor, Xuanzong had a particular obsession with the stars, commissioning the construction of the Tianwen station atop Mount Li. There, Tang scholars, astronomers, and early mechanists constructed observatories and primitive gravitational engines. The emperor's vision was not limited to Earth's political dominance. He foresaw the expansion of the mandate of heaven beyond terrestrial realms. His edict spoke of Tianxia, not as all under heaven, but all touched by heaven. The Tang Dynasty, it seemed, had not only dreamed of reaching the stars, they had made real efforts to do so. But as Ilan listened, a darker truth emerged. With expansion came fractures. The An Lushan Rebellion, long recorded as a terrestrial civil war, was in this archive something far more complex. And Lushan, once a loyal Tang general, had commandeered one of the experimental arc platforms, threatening to deploy it as a weapon against the capital if he wasn't granted autonomous rule of the western provinces. The war was devastating. Chang'an was abandoned. The Tianwen station was sealed. The dreams scattered among ruins and legends, and yet some had survived. The AI called them the Celestial Stewards, those who had preserved the Tang's cosmic legacy in fragments, embedding it in art, poetry, and architecture, waiting for someone, something, to unlock it again. The construct paused. You have unlocked the sequence because you, Archivist Rowe, bear the genetic markers of House Li. She recoiled. That's impossible. It is not. You carry mitochondrial signatures traceable to Empress Jiangsun. Your arrival was not chance. It was echo. Elan's mind reeled. She had studied countless dynasties, systems, wars, but never herself. Was she really linked to a line that once gazed into the stars and dared to claim them? And more urgently, why was this legacy buried so deeply? Who wanted it forgotten? Myra, she whispered, activating her AI. Encrypt everything we've seen. Full shadow record. Confirmed, Myra replied. The construct's expression hardened. Your time is limited. Not all who descend into the past are permitted to return unchallenged. What do you mean? Elan asked. Others have come. Others who seek to erase what you now carry. The knowledge of the Tang is more than memory. It is power. And there are those who fear what the past can still awaken. Somewhere above them, the pressure in the chamber shifted. A tremor shook dust from the ancient ceilings. Elan knew then that her presence had triggered more than just discovery. It had activated guardians, protocols, perhaps enemies still loyal to the silence imposed after the Empire's fall. She turned back to the projection. You said knowledge demands proof of mind. What do I need to do? The construct inclined its head. Awaken Tianwen. Restore the Star Mandate, or let the Empire vanish again into myth. The chamber lights dimmed, the projection faded, and Elan, blood humming with centuries of fate, began the ascent, not away from history, but toward its reckoning. The wind howled above the buried archive. As Elan Rowe climbed the narrow ascent shaft, her heart a metronome of adrenaline and disbelief. The vault had offered not just revelations, it had delivered a legacy, encrypted in stone and starlight. Myra's holographic interface hovered near her shoulder, casting diagnostic updates and directional markers in pale blue glyphs. Yet it wasn't data that consumed Elan now. It was the weight of inheritance, of being a living conduit between a forgotten dynasty and a galaxy teetering on the brink of rediscovered power. Once she reached the surface platform, the sky greeted her like a revelation. Night had fallen over the desert, scattering the stars across the heavens with ruthless clarity. Somewhere beyond those points of light lay the arc remnants of the Tang's celestial reach. And perhaps worse, forces who had long worked to ensure such truths remained hidden. Her transport, a worn shuttle named Ashen Sky, blinked softly a few hundred meters ahead. She crossed the last ridge when her wrist display flickered and died. Myra's projection fuzzed out. Elan, came a voice, distorted, masculine, almost intimate in its calm. You're carrying ghosts you were never meant to find. She froze. Identify yourself. There's no need. You've touched something ancient. That makes you dangerous. The voice wasn't coming from comms. It was projected through the terrain itself, bouncing off iron and sand. She scanned quickly. Movement. 3 figures, shadow-draped, descending from the opposite bluff. Not drones. Human. Possibly enhanced. Definitely armed. Elan ducked behind a basalt outcrop, fingers tight around the sidearm she rarely used. This wasn't an academic ambush. This was suppression. We don't want to kill you, the voice said, almost convincing. We just want the data. Erase it. Forget the dynasty. Go back to digging up bones and treaties. They weren't just a dynasty, she hissed, toggling Myra's hard reboot. They were the architects of a truth you buried. That's the problem, he answered. Myra blinked back to life with a soft whine. 2 seconds to pulse override. Elan whispered into her sleeve. Overload their sensors. Run distraction on thermal. Executing. A split second later, a sound like a thunderclap split the night. A shockwave of light and heat flared to the left, sending 2 of the shadows stumbling. Elan rose, fired twice, not to hit but to warn, and sprinted toward ashen sky. Her boots hammered against the ground, past old survey posts and shattered fossils, toward the one thread of escape she had left. The shuttle's ramp was already dropping as she neared. A voice from within shouted, "Move! Now!" Captain Juro, her pilot, and until this very moment, the only one who didn't think her Tang obsession was a waste of Terran funding. She dove inside. Juro hit the throttle before the ramp sealed, and ashen sky roared upward in a vertical burn. From the rear camera, Elan saw a final ominous shape watching them ascend, a man in armor unlike any she recognized, standing amidst the rising dust. "Who were they?" Juro asked. "Guardians of ignorance," she muttered, "or the descendants of traitors." Juro glanced at her. "And what the hell did you find down there that got them so worked up?" Elan exhaled slowly, unzipping her field jacket to reveal the ancient Tang sigil glowing faintly on a crystalline data core. Proof that the Tang Dynasty wasn't just a historical superpower. They were something more, something bigger. Juro whistled, low and uneasy. "We gonna tell the council?" "No," she said. "Not yet. If the council knew, the whole galaxy would start rewriting borders before breakfast." "So what then?" "We go to Tianwen." She rotated the data core, watching the inscriptions shift and pulse in response to her touch. "We finish what they started." Outside the viewport, the stars awaited, distant and patient. Elan Ro stared into them, the gravity of an empire long past still pulling her forward, not into history, but into destiny.